Hello, and welcome to another fully live, if slightly late, Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have our special guest, Angelina, on to talk about aviation security and her upcoming airplane hacking class. Angelina, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me on the stream again, Kody.
Yeah, so your last class on the online class on drone hacking just happened last week. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we did an online variant of the drone hacking class this weekend, and it went pretty well. We had about 15 attendees, and we went over pretty much the same things we did in the in-person drone hacking workshop. Went over drone attack surfaces and 3 interactive labs where people can experience the drone forensics process alongside exploiting a pretty vulnerable beginner-based drone system using a custom-made CTF I made for the class.
I think at some point we still need to get you that Parrot drone, the one that has like telnet exposed and like really basic like
Yeah,
Wi-Fi, so we can record like a video of you like basically dropping it out of the sky by causing it to shut down by logging into its like telnet service.
yeah, definitely. I think the Parrot AR drone Model 2 is in a very vulnerable drone, and it's really great for beginners to get their hands on drone hacking and learning the concepts about UAV hacking. So, yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to making at least a video demonstration on how people could exploit that drone by scanning over its ports and causing a TCP shutdown using Telnet.
That's so cool. And of course, you're going to touch on even more interesting stuff. This is the first time it's coming up on September 30th is the workshop. I'll actually put it up on the screen real quick. But this is the first time you've done a workshop on things that fly and have people, actually on them. Although I guess like space stations, arguably satellites, could have people on them. So maybe that isn't true. But explicitly for things that carry people on a regular basis, this is the first time you're going to be touching on aerospace cybersecurity. How do you feel like this is different from your drone hacking content and your satellite hacking content?
Yes, in terms of the content in general, it's a lot more contentious. Ironically, we and I think I proposed the idea to you on 9/11, which was really funny. But yes, but we had a conversation because yes, satellites and drones, they don't typically have people on them. If it's a satellite, yes, like there's things like the International Space Station, but it's only designated personnel. But with planes, we are 100% going to be dealing with people and personnel, not only on the ground, but also up in the air. And talking about this could cause a little bit of discussion or concern. So I tried to make this class more centric about the security and defense portion. Whatever workshop we do that's somewhat offensive, it's going to be under a completely simulated environment. So there won't be any interference of um, aircraft that's in the air. Um, yeah, so we'll be taking a defensive approach. And as a pilot myself, this is like a huge issue I've been trying to tackle with because there's been a lot of developments in avionic systems, but there's still a lot of underlying vulnerabilities, and there hasn't been a lot of discussion around the cybersecurity um, segment of aircraft systems. So I'm very excited to be talking a little bit more about that during this class on Saturday.
Yeah, this is an in-person class too. So we do two different types of classes. This is going to be an in-person class at Null Space Labs. The tickets are all gonna a portion of each ticket is going to go to benefit Null Space Labs and make sure they can keep their doors open. So if you're in the Southern California area and you've ever been curious about aviation security, the number one question that we get from people considering coming into one of these classes is like, do I need to be a programmer? Do I need to be an expert to take this class? And of course, what I like about these classes is it has a little something for everyone. You can be a complete beginner and get a very good high level overview of how aviation security works. Or with some of your demos, you can kind of with it if you know a little bit of Python, you know a little bit of scripting, and you can see how the demo works, understand the concept, and take it a little bit further. So I think your classes are a really good balance of that. So if you're in Southern California, you want to be able to support a really excellent hackerspace, then you can go in person to Null Space Labs over by the Burbank Airport, the best airport in LA, in my opinion. And you can check it out. Last time we had a really good turnout. Um, the only thing that's different is, I will say, in a online class, nobody can talk over you. We had a little bit of a problem last time in the class where one of the students had a lot of questions and was like indignant that drones were sending like your flight information to like a Chinese server. He like wanted to know how that was legal, and he was like very upset about it. And if that was you and you're in the chat, then thank you for your questions. But we do need to keep things moving along, just to make sure that everybody has the ability to get all the demos and all the labs and everything completed. So we're probably going to have to like police how long questions go on this one a little bit more closely. Aside from that, though, the workshops are always a lot of fun. It's cool to check out the space. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I will not be going in person, unfortunately, but our emissary, Ryan Gimenez, will also be there, acting as the MC and helping out. So if you want to see some of our team, as well as checking out a great workshop that Angelina is putting on while also supporting a great hackerspace in Los Angeles, check it out. It's going to be really fun. All right. So what have I been working on this week? So I have a lot of stuff that I've been working on. One of the things I've been working on is lasers. Angelina, I don't know if I showed you this. So we made these handy breakout boards that make it so you can easily breadboard using our USB nugget. So this is something where there's so many pins broken out on this, and there's a lot of things that these pins can do. A lot of them are capacitive touch pins, so you can like turn them into like buttons that you touch to activate. And of course, you can control things like a laser. So I was making a demonstration where I wanted to teach a little class where we send laser messages from across the room. And that could be like a song or something like that. But I immediately decided that that's probably not a good idea, because when you plug the laser detector in, it's not marked. And if you plug it in backwards, smoke instantly pours out of it, and it becomes extremely hot and causes a little fire. So I would not call it kid friendly, and I would also call it not idiot proof, because if you're not paying attention, like I was paying attention, I was looking at a schematic and I still got it in backwards. So fortunately, I had multiple of them. But I was experimenting with using CircuitPython and microcontrollers to send messages over laser. I've been making a lot of LED throwies. Somebody in our comments got really mad last week about the concept of an LED throwy. I hadn't even mentioned it yet, but they said that it was basically just like lead trash that people leave outside. But LED throwies are, in my opinion, kind of cool because they can mark an area. They can like operate autonomously for a good amount of time. I'm currently tracking one that's up to, I think, 7 or 8 days in one place with an LED that like changes through all the different colors. So they're really cool. But being able to transmit a little bit of data is even cooler. So I was experimenting with being able to send information over laser. And let's just say that CircuitPython has some quirks. When we were designing our badge game, we kind of noticed that when we were using CircuitPython, it would either add on extra characters to the transmission, or it would divide the bytes in two or whatever, and then we would get like a weird incomplete transmission that didn't match. And that's exactly what was happening with the laser too. So I'm going to take a step back, but that's one project I'm working on, is laser communication for a demo. I also have been working with AI. So this is something that I tweeted earlier this week, or I put it on Mastodon. That's how I'll describe it. And then it was syndicated to Twitter. But I was like, wow, look at how Claude, Anthropic's AI model, is able to take in CSV data. Isn't that cool? It makes it so it's so easy for me to ask meaningful questions about war driving data. So let's talk about this. I was humbled by my own lack of checking initially, and I was just like, okay, check this out. I was able to upload a piece of war driving data, and war driving, of course, is going around and recording the approximate location of wireless networks in a database and then sharing that somehow. So in this case, I had gone around a Circle Line tour in New York, which is like a little like tour that like takes you around the river and like you kind of get close to everything. And I ran Wiggle Wi-Fi, which uploads to wiggle.net on my Android phone. And I recorded a bunch of wireless data, and I wanted to see if this AI model could do three things. If it could analyze the data, if it could enrich the data, and if it could output the data into like a visual representation. So these CSV files are like, this one's like 5,000 lines of data. And I uploaded it and I asked it a question. I said, I want you to cross-reference the MAC addresses of all these wireless networks with a list of vendors and then identify the most common vendors in this area. So I was basically telling it to do a survey of the data and actually transform it, like pull in new data and give me an analysis. And it told me that it extracted the network ID column, used the MAC vendor lookup package in Python to look up the vendor, that's real, calculated the frequency of each vendor, and then sorted the vendor to find the frequency of the most common ones. And this is what it said. There were 528 Ruckus Wireless networks. There was 143 Aruba networks. There's 137 Cisco networks. That sounds super reasonable. And then it concluded that Ruckus Wireless access points made up 25% of networks. And then, Aruba, Cisco, and Netgear have a strong presence. That sounds pretty typical to me. Like I've been in a lot of environments where that's the case. I was kind of new to New York, so I haven't made any like observations really. Thank you, Dame. I was trying to avoid saying that, but yes, I think the InfoSec people on Mastodon are calling them toots. I was just not going to say that I tooted that, but now that you've acknowledged that, I guess I have to. Anyway, so point here is I was able to upload a bunch of numbers. I was able to pull in new data, and then it was able to analyze that, or so it seemed, because it provided these steps of what a reasonable person would do to enrich the data. I assumed that it had actually like done some code here. I thought that it had actually like processed the information, but this is just, on a certain level, a very fancy autocomplete. So this was not setting up tasks for itself and then doing them. It was actually just guessing what the output of those tasks should look like. So in the end, I ended up getting statistics that looked really reasonable, but they were completely wrong. They were completely fabricated. Claude didn't even try to calculate this information. Instead, it just tried to assume what that information should look like. So I was so impressed by this initially that I went ahead and I made a video on how to do it, talking about the different ways you can play with data. And after doing it once and then trying it again and then starting to look at the responses, I realized that something was wrong. I was getting a different response every single time that I ran this. So let me show off. Here we go. This is Claude. And this is one of my conversations. I would upload a CSV file, which was a Word driving file. I would say, okay, this is a Word driving file. It shows Wi-Fi data. Please provide a breakdown by manufacturer using the MAC address and a MAC address lookup table to tally and rank the number of networks by authentication and manufacturer. Provide a summary and output a CSV formatted text of the manufacturer by frequency. I wanted to see if it could transform the data a little bit. So it comes back. And now it says that there's a total of 278 Wi-Fi networks in the data. That doesn't really square with what we had before. There was like 500 of them. Now we have 146 networks using WPA2 encryption, 123 use no encryption, 9 use WEP. The top manufacturers are Ubiquiti, Apple, and Netgear. Okay, so that's totally different from what it said before. And this is the same file. Now it did manage to like convert this and make it into a CSV file. Not a very impressive one, I might add, but it makes a little summary. So what it seems here is that it's just wrong. It's just making things up. And these AI systems like Claude by Anthropic or Bard by Google or ChatGPT-4, they are just doing their best to approximate what this should look like. So if you're doing data science, if you're doing analysis, if you're doing a lot of the things that AI seems like it would be good at, you have to be super careful and you have to check this stuff manually. So this is what I did. I went ahead and used one of my other favorite things, which is Google Colab. So Google Colab, if you've ever used Python to do data visualization or analysis, this is something that allows you to take in a data set and then visualize it or change it up or organize it very easily with Python. And a lot of scientists use Python. It's something that, is easy to use and fairly simple to work with. So as a result, you can take these sorts of notebooks and share them amongst other people that have the same type of data. And then they can run the same calculations on their data set and get meaningful insights. So that's kind of what we did here. I went ahead and made some things that will calculate this and give me a deeper insight into the same data set that Claude is pretending to analyze. So this is what I got. So I went through, I extracted the information. I was able to identify the manufacturers using a library. And this is totally different from every single response that we got back from Claude. So it was just lying. There's no way other to say it other than it was just making up information based on what it expected me to want to see. It picked some manufacturers that were very common, and then it just created a random number of networks and then kind of like flubbed the whole thing. Now, there is one kind of caveat to this, and I'm going to make a video about this because I went through and tested this and really checked to see if how many of its conclusions were wrong. Claude was actually perfectly able to give me a KML file, which is like a map file that I could load into Google Maps and identify where all the vulnerable WEP networks were. And it was actually accurate with this. So data transformation, like taking a piece of data and translating it into something else, it seems like it was actually able to do. It found the correct data within the data set and it translated it into a different format. No problem. But when it comes to analyzing the data set by pulling in more information, it just went totally off the rails and started giving me statistics that made no sense. So this is just an example that these AI systems, they're powerful, they're useful, but using something like Google Colab to verify the results and make sure that it's not just making up information, it's super, super important. So even though these systems are powerful, sometimes the power goes into making it seem plausible. And you really need to be scientific about using this if you don't want to make mistakes when analyzing data. So I will admit I did use ChatGPT to write the Google Colab script that I then used to analyze the actual data set. So if the two AIs are working together, then we might have a problem. But otherwise, I can still use one AI to kind of debug the other AI in this case. And using ChatGPT for what it's good at, which is writing like basic Python code and doing like maybe something like a little bit of like writing code to do data analysis, that it can handle. But doing the same process, but manually pulling in new data and then like doing analysis based on that, it's not there yet. It does not seem to be able to handle it. So that's my little story of what I've been working on this week. Trying to get AI to analyze war driving data, but instead finding out that it just confidently makes stuff up and will hallucinate, especially when asked to pull in new data. It even covers its tracks by coming up with plausible steps for what it should have done in order to arrive at that conclusion. Pretty weird.
That's crazy. That goes to show you how you can't use AI completely confidently for security-based research, but as long as you have some kind of like confirmation method in order to confirm and verify those results, it could be somewhat helpful. Just a question about that. Did you use any other like AI resources for that? And were you able to get any like tangible results? Or were they all just like making up nonsense?
So the biggest reason I used Claude was its ability to upload files. So on ChatGPT, at least that I've seen, I haven't been able to, through the main interface, upload like a CSV file. And in general, the problem is that OpenAI yanked ChatGPT's connection to the internet. So it can't do a search. It can't learn current information. In my opinion, that was the best thing about it, was when I could like tick on that like beta like plugin and get real-time search information or navigate to a website and display the information or include it in an analysis. So before with ChatGPT 4, I would have maybe uploaded the CSV file to GitHub, pointed it at that, and it would have gone and gotten it, read through it, and then it would have all those tokens stored and I could start to manipulate them and ask questions. That was cool. They yanked that. There were some issues with that. People were doing some funny stuff, and OpenAI got scared, and they completely removed this ability. So now Bing is really the only other thing, the only other AI tool I know of that would be capable of like navigating to an online resource and then analyzing it. But I feel like Bing or Microsoft has like turned down the power on the ChatGPT that goes through their like Bing search. It's like it doesn't feel as thoughtful or as complete as like ChatGPT-4 that like you pay for example. So of the different models that are available, I would say it was easiest to feed a CSV data set to Claude, just because of the way that it's set up. And I will say also there's a pretty big cap on how much data you can feed it. So like this is not going to be used for big data analysis anytime soon. Although I do see in the future how this would be so useful for data sets that are just too big to see patterns in. Like, asking AI to write code that generates a report, including like graphs and like, other things that show patterns, but also provide its own summary and analysis. That's really powerful. Like, and I think that that's going to be the future when it comes to big data analysis, being able to conversationally ask questions of a data set in like a standardized way. It's just, we're not there yet. Ironically, I think that if I turn the CSV file into a PDF, then there's maybe a plugin I could use currently with ChatGPT-4 to analyze it. But this kind of like cross-format stuff is one of the problems with being able to use these AI resources. They don't all accept the same formats. Although I have been enjoying creating feedback loops. So let me explain what that is. So so Bing Image Creator is able to generate images for free via text-based descriptions. It's also able to, in Bing's like chat search, upload a file and then have it describe it. So like upload like an image file and have it describe it. So one of the things I've been doing is within the character limit you're allowed, having the Bing chat, which is just GPT-4, look at an image and describe it in as much detail as possible, and then hand it off to Bing Image Creator and have a DALL-E model then create an image that's trying to be the same as the original. And then you do that over and over and over, and it's like a game of telephone. You see like mistakes or embellishments or other sorts of things start to either grow or fade depending on the way the AI interprets the original result. So you get this string of photos from most accurate, the original, to least accurate. That's still, like, if you were to describe it to a third party who wasn't there, they sound the same. It's the same person. They're wearing the same clothes. The setting is more or less the same, but visually they can be very different. So yeah, that's been something I've been working with, playing with AI and feeding it back into a circle. So it's just like giving two AIs, feeding each other an image over and over and over and watching it kind of evolve. Like, that's been really interesting this week. So lots of cool AI stuff. Also, I'm sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat, partially because it's not displayed on the overlay. Boom, look at that. You guys are you're on TV. Just kidding. One question was, where could I find the article that I talked about police Bluetooth devices? I actually shared this, I think, on Twitter. There was a talk about how police body cameras are basically AirTags and they're super easy to track and find. So yeah, check my Twitter feed. I will look it up though and share it. Speaking of AirTags and that sort of thing, though, I did have one other thing I wanted to share this week. So Angelina, did you hear about the scare where a bunch of people's like Apple devices were getting pairing requests when they were at DEF CON?
Yes, was it something to do with the Bluetooth capability of those devices? Yeah, I was hearing a lot of rage about that.
Yeah, so people at DEF CON were getting these pop-ups on their phone asking if they wanted to share their Wi-Fi credentials with this nearby Apple TV. So the threat model here is like, you get the pop-up, you press yes by accident, and boom, you've accidentally shared your Wi-Fi credentials with a rogue device. Now, this has been a popular attack, to say the least. So a lot of people have been interested in developing it further and making it more useful. I really like this comment, by the way. I really like how AI engineers don't really understand how it works. Yes, these black box computers are like, they're the result of like training. That's like it's more like raising a child than, like writing a program. Like, it really does rely on the way that it is exposed to information and how structured that is in order to produce meaningful results. So yeah, I'm super excited about all this stuff. It's really spooky and crazy. But anyway, more tangibly, let's talk about Apple Juice. So this is a Bluetooth proximity pairing message, and this is something that should not be that difficult to simulate. So what we're trying to do is make it appear that there's a brand spanking new Apple device nearby and it wants to pair, and it's kind of a convenience thing where you can use a single tap in order to get it to pair with your device and maybe share some information like Wi-Fi credentials or something like that. So how exactly does this work? Well, let's go to GitHub. We've got so much stuff. So I am currently looking at the Pi Pico version, which I am absolutely going to try after this stream. And what this does is it uses a Raspberry Pi Pico W. So that's the one with Wi-Fi. I have a couple of them. Loads it up with CircuitPython and then allows you to have a web interface that you can spring these attacks from. So when it's loaded up, it'll start creating a Wi-Fi access point, and then it loads up this web interface. And you can select what device you want to appear as and start or stop advertising here. So you start the project, and then anytime there's an Apple device nearby, it should start spamming connection requests. And this is both, kind of an issue if you maybe we're going to leak Wi-Fi credentials, but also just really super annoying. So if you want to, and so right now the Raspberry Pi Pico Ws are relatively cheap. I think they're under 15 bucks, but I can do one even better. Let's take a look at this. So you can apparently run this on your computer box. So just any, like your laptop, or you can run it on an ESP32. So I was kind of thinking we might even be able to get this to run on, well, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll see. I think it would probably work on the ESP32S3 that has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. I'm not sure about the ESP32S2, and that makes me sad. But there's an ESP32S2 port of this that should be able to be flashed over to like $4 or $5 super inexpensive ESP32 boards. So if you wanted to try out that cool and interesting hack you heard from DEF CON, it looks like it's just this, like literally just this INO file. You just load that up into Arduino IDE, and then that's it. You can annoy people with Apple devices. So there's a lot of different devices you can pretend to be. Are they listed here? Let's find out. Oh yeah, it looks like there's even support for Flipper, but it seems like there's maybe a Raspberry Pi involved. At that point, just use the Raspberry Pi. That's just a trigger. But whatever, it's cool. All right, here we go. So this is the list of different devices that you can spoof using at least the app.py. I believe that most of these you can also spoof using an ESP32, but I haven't tried it out yet. So we've got AirPods of all sorts, Power Beats, Beats X, Apple TVs, and you can see there's also some function related stuff here. So Apple TV keyboard, Apple TV connecting it to your network. And you can also initiate a transfer of a number to a new phone. So obviously, I think that one is going to require some authentication before you get rolling with completely moving things over. But hey, still pretty cool, right? I have to say, the fact that you can spam these and you can even select the type of device you're pretending to be and the type of transaction you're trying to make, like transferring over a number or connecting to a network, like that's spooky. I think that's really cool. And this is what it looks like when it pops up in your phone. It really does take up a lot of real estate on your Apple device. So yeah, if you've got a spare ESP32 lying around, I recommend checking this out. It's got a lot of stars, which tells me that this is a popular and timely project. So I will probably make another video about this at some point. It'll probably get taken down off TikTok, honestly. But I'm still reeling from being betrayed by Claude last week after putting in all the energy to make a video about it. So yes, expect to see a video on Apple BLE spam. Cool. All right, so okay, I also want to acknowledge, yes, James's point, the Flipper version, and it also seems like most of these demos right here do not steal credentials. They do the pop-up, but the one that was happening at DEF CON, I believe, was a little bit different in that it was requesting like pairing credentials, or it was trying to like get pairing credentials for like an Apple TV. So this one is not, as far as I know, specifically for phishing credentials. So please don't download this, run it, and then get mad at me that like you can't phish credentials, because I believe this is a proof of concept and not not like a password stealing trick. Let's see. All right, so we will of course take any questions in the chat as they go. Oh, look, here we have a question. What is happening, guys? Not much, just talking about AI betraying me, and then some of these tools. another question. Do inversion locally use Hugging Face models? I don't know. I haven't been. So Hugging Face is like a website for hosting AI models or like training, like trained models, and weights and all that fun stuff. I have kind of dropped out of that for a little bit. Angelina, have you been running any AI models or like tried any of the like Hugging Face stored varieties?
Ooh, I haven't used Hugging Face specifically, but I think since AI has been on the rise, I have been exploring a few um, artificial intelligence based projects within the cybersecurity field.
Yeah, I've been really interested in Llama. So Llama was Meta's open AI model, and then Alpaca, which was like a tuned version of that. And let's see, it's all lie. I'm trying to look up the project. There was, oh, here we go. There we go. All right, I'm going to show this again. So this is the project that I was last working on Delay. It was, it's still being maintained. Oh, it looks like maybe it was shifted over. Um, but it just allows you to run a very simple command in order to install some of these open models. I did some demos earlier on how to do it, how simple it is, and then the way that you can get more sophisticated models. It does take up some space. If you want the 65 billion parameter model, it's going to take up 32 gigabytes, but that's not like a lot. Like, that's not too bad. So this is purported to have performance similar to GPT-3. I find that really it's about prompt engineering here. I guess I'll say, because like if you don't prompt it for exactly how it's supposed to respond, it will just complete the end of your sentence. Literally, it's just like it doesn't get it. So you have to tell it like you are serving this role, you are responding in this way. And what's cool about it is it's free. You can run it on your computer in like one or two clicks, and it allows you to kind of see all the work that OpenAI did to make like ChatGPT like friendly and personable and easy to use. It definitely discouraged me a little bit at first to use it and then be frustrated by it, but it's a really cool project. And there's a lot of other AI projects by Cocktail Peanut. I follow them on Twitter, and they make a lot of really cool AI related stuff that's basically designed to make AI as friendly for beginners as possible. There's a lot of video related stuff. There is like image creation related stuff. So if you want to stay up with AI, this is my current person that I follow to see all the interesting stuff that's going on. Yes, so can't answer that question specifically, but that is where I would go to find out. All right. So Angelina, did you want to talk a little bit about, while we get more questions in, what you're going to be covering in your upcoming aerospace hacking class? Oh, and sorry, I will also take this question. Whoops, I got the wrong one. Where is it? Do you have to use the breadboard with the 3266, and which API is good for creating a Wi-Fi project? Do you want to take that one or shall I?
I'm assuming by the 3266 they mean the ESP8266.
That's
Um,
what I
and
that's what I think they mean.
okay,
I may sorry, take longer. I may need you to be slightly more specific on that one. But so
yeah,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I could try answering the question briefly, and then I know Kody, you've also worked on a variety of projects based on the ESP8266, so you can talk a little bit about your experience too. So yeah, um, I would recommend if you're looking for to use the ESP8266 in order to breadboard some projects, I think the Node MCU version of the ESP8266 is the easiest to work with, and then you can make like a simple Wi-Fi scanner or like a channel analyzer. Um, you can also look into like other open source projects which are widely used, like the DAuth detector or the DAuthor, and then just work off of code that was written from there. I think the first project I worked on that used the ESP8266 was just a simple 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi channel analyzer, and then from there you can just add like different peripherals like a screen or whatever. And specific APIs, I know canary tokens are usually used with microcontrollers in order to create some kind of honeypot scenario. I'm curious, Kody, like, have you used any other APIs?
Yeah, so let me think. All right, so original question is, do you have to use the breadboard with the ESP8266, and what API is good for creating Wi-Fi projects? So no, I always use ESP8266 in a platform like this. So this is the D1 Mini. It has a lot of pins broken out, and then I plug that into one of our Wi-Fi nuggets, which gives me a broken out row of female pin headers on the back where I can just plug stuff in directly. Now, for the other microcontrollers I work with, which is a step up from that, that's the ESP32S2. I do use like a breadboard breakout with it's right here. I use this breadboard breakout to be able to access all the extra pins it has on the back. This microcontroller has double the number of pins as the D1 Mini. So there's way more things I can plug into it, and like the inputs and outputs are all like, there's a lot going on. So that's why I use the breadboard breakout. For the majority of D1 Minis, you can just put like long pin headers in and plug it into a breadboard and get access to all the pins. Or if you have a D1 Mini, you can plug in female pin headers and then just plug wires into it directly, and you don't need to breadboard anything. It looks chaotic, and it's gonna probably get tangled, but yeah, you don't need to use a breadboard for that. I would add a word of caution with the Node MCU. There are 3 different versions of it, and oh, here we go. I love it. I found a website complaining about it. So the Node MCU is great because look at all these pins. Like everything's broken out. It's like it gives you access to all the available pins on the ESP8266. So that's this board that's very obviously soldered on top of this carrier board. So the D1 Mini, the Node MCU, they're both like breakout boards or development boards like for this core chip, the ESP8266. And I like this one because yes, it has all the pins broken out, but here's the problem. There's like 4 versions of this thing. And if you order the V1 versus the V2 versus the V3, you get totally different products. So the V3, which is the big fat boy version, I believe that's this one. This is a terrible board. It is huge. It actually will not fit on a standard breadboard properly. So it's very, very frustrating to use. It won't fit on a mini breadboard at all. It sucks. So that's why I tend to steer people, at least when I'm doing these sorts of classes, unless they need the extra pins, I tend to steer them towards the D1 Mini, because there's different versions of the D1 Mini, but they all have the same footprint and they're all the same size. Whereas like if you get the wrong type of Node MCU, it can be like almost twice as big as what you're expecting. So I didn't like that surprise, and that was something that I had to deal with. All right, so then to answer the rest of the question, which is about what is a good API to use for creating a Wi-Fi project. So if you're writing code in like CircuitPython, or sorry, MicroPython, then there's lots of available options for like default, like turning on the Wi-Fi, turning off the Wi-Fi, making a soft AP, making like a web interface. Like there's lots of cool stuff you can do. Arduino is a little bit more difficult, but there's more options. Lots of people have made like web-based projects for the ESP8266. So you'll see everything from pulling down data and displaying it, or using it like a weather sensor, or like Angelina described, like a canary token, where when someone tries to go to it, it like triggers something. There's lots of examples out there of like ways people have used the microcontroller for that. And oftentimes the libraries have examples, so you can just, get started with it and see if you want to use that library in the first place. So that'd be that's a kind of broad range of project advice tips for it, but there's just a lot of options in Arduino if you know what you're doing with C++ that you can modify. And then there's good basic functionality in like something more easy like MicroPython. All right, what else do I have to show this week? I already complained about Anthropic. I think we have like 6 minutes left, so we're pretty much towards the end. But yeah, I want to make sure everyone knows how to get to Angelina's class. So if you are in the SoCal area, I will drop this in the chat. You can also find it on our Discord server. So of course, if you want to get to our Discord server, you can go to Nugget, that's nugget.lol. That's our just short link to get there. And you can post your questions there if I didn't get around to answering them this time. So yeah, with that 7 minutes left, did you want to talk about maybe the ADSB stuff that you've been working on this week?
Yeah, of course. So let me share my screen. So I've been working on this project for quite a while now. I think it's been about 6 or 7 months. But I put it on standby because I have a lot of other exciting projects I've been working on these past few months. But essentially, what I created was a Raspberry Pi based interface for getting ADS-B data. If you don't know what ADS-B is, it stands for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. And it's essentially a radar system to track planes in the air. And pilots use it all the time. Personally, I have a iPad with me at all times whenever I'm flying a plane in order to see ADS-B broadcasts, so I make sure I don't collide with other planes in the sky. It's also used by ground control, which are solely responsible for coordinating when planes get to land at a specific airport and when they get to depart, and they all rely on this ADS-B infrastructure. But the problem with ADS-B is that it's unauthenticated and it's unencrypted, making it really vulnerable to attacks such as jamming or spoofing, where a ground-based attacker can send up malicious signals in the air in order to interfere with true or real ADS-B signals. So a common attack is called ADS-B spoofing, where a hacker transmits fake masqueraded ADS-B packets, pretending that there is a plane in the sky when there actually isn't. And this could cause massive flight delays, collisions, and a whole bunch of chaos. So the goal of this project was to make a affordable and accessible device that's based on the Raspberry Pi that detects for ADS-B spoofing scenarios using a wide range of techniques such as RF fingerprinting, which checks for fluctuations within the radio signals that are transmitted on the radar system. Because ADS-B operates on the 1090 megahertz frequency, you can scan that specific frequency, check for fluctuations, and if there's like a really absurd or obscene fluctuation, then that might be an indicator of an attack on the system. There's also other machine learning techniques you can use because all ADS-B logs are recorded, and you can use those records in order to get data such as, let me try to find an image. I might not have put it in this article yet, but it tracks data such as the velocity of the aircraft, the orientation of the aircraft, the position of the aircraft, and you can scan those values over time in order to check for if a plane that is being broadcasted is fake or not. So this device does both methods where it checks for specific frequency channels and also looks over the data in order to check for the validity of specific aircraft in the sky. And the cool part about this project is, since I'm a pilot, I was actually able to take it up with me on a flight. I think Kody and I are working on a video right now to put up on the Redia channel about this device. But you can see here, I use a 1090 megahertz antenna, so you can have a stationary system set up if you choose to build this device, or you can choose to bring it up with you on a plane. I chose to bring it up with me because I wanted to extend the range of data I had access to and also try it out in different airports. So I think I tested it out over the Burbank airport, the Santa Monica airport. I think I stopped by the Torrance airport at one point, and also LAX as well. So overall, this was a really fun project, and I'm excited to be releasing content about it soon.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if you guys are curious about learning more, you can check out the workshop that is happening this weekend in Null Space Labs. And I'm sure we will eventually do an online version of the workshop. You can follow Cyber Weapons Lab LA on Meetup if you want to stay tuned for upcoming classes that Angelina will be doing. And yeah, I think that's just about it for today. James says, you took this on a flight? Awesome. No, you took it on a flight. There's no quotations involved. You literally took it up in like an airplane.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's the beauty of having a pilot's license. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't crash. So, um, yeah, so I brought it up on a flight. I think I brought it with me on a few flights. It typically, I put it on a portable charger, so it lasted for a few hours, and I got access to a lot of data. So yeah, it was a lot of fun working on the project, and it was a cool coalition of my passion for aviation and also cybersecurity.
So a correction on the earlier question. Talking about getting a starter kit with the Wi-Fi module and being stuck finding a project. Okay, this is how I do it. Like often I'll be in Arduino, I'll go into the libraries and I'll look for, like popular libraries that have the ESP8266. I'll look for things that mention it and try to find a project that I want to work with. So, an air quality sensor, alert me. And I can also look up, projects that have Arduino libraries. But what I like about these is frequently there will be something. Let's try a web server. Frequently there will be something that gets you started, and that's sometimes all you need to have a project that you're trying out and want to see a good result from. So just as an example, I have the ESP8266 board installed. I can see, oh look, a rich HTTP server, sensor plot, web interface, simple FTP server. That sounds cool. That actually sounds really cool. Are you serious? An FTP server for, I love it. Okay, so now that I know about this, I'm going to want to probably use it as a target at some point to like attack. But yeah, okay, so I'll have an ESP8266. Oh, look, I even have one right here. It's probably not going to compile, and I'm not really going to try very hard. In fact, I'm not even going to plug it in. But what I'm going to do is, let's see. If I go to examples here under file, I should be able to identify some of the libraries that I've downloaded. So what's the one that I just did? Simple FTP server. Okay, over here, these are all example sketches. So these are things where somebody already went through the trouble of writing a sketch for the Raspberry Pi Pico W that already does this FTP server. And all I need to do is plug in the appropriate board, select it here, and then flash it over. So if you're looking for like new projects to get started on, it looks like the only thing I need to change here is my Wi-Fi network name and password. And this should connect to my Wi-Fi network and act as a mini FTP server. I hope that you can also change the password. Maybe there is no password. Oh well, I guess we'll see. But anyway, yeah, so if you want to try out new projects and you have a piece of hardware, this is how I find new stuff all the time. Obviously, you can like go searching on GitHub, but the ability to just like find code by looking at popular libraries that other people are using to build their projects, sometimes these example sketches are kind of what I need to get started and just modify them a little bit to do something else. So lots of cool free programs that you can use to get started. Often the easiest way to discover them, just looking through the libraries that particular board supports. Will it work? Guaranteed? No. That's the beauty of Arduino. I have no idea who made, actually that's not true. I know who made it. It says right here. But sometimes it's not so clear and maybe there's not great documentation. Yes, there's definitely no guarantees with this free code that you'll find, but hey, look at that. This one even comes with a little explainer for how to put it together and talks about the usage of the library. So anyway, that's just a little like my 2 cents on like how I find a project for a piece of hardware where maybe I haven't used it very much before. If I find a bunch of libraries that are written for that hardware in Arduino IDE and they have example sketches written for them, I could have 10 different examples of things that will work that I can try out, and maybe 4 of them won't work. But like it's a lot easier to debug code nowadays. So that's something that I like to do a lot. Okay, so here's another comment. I really like the project that turns an ESP into a Wi-Fi repeater. Yes, the Wi-Fi NAT router. So this is something I think that I covered on. Did I cover this on Nullbyte? I feel like I did. I'm gonna look it up. Did I? Did I? No, I guess I didn't. Wow. Okay. I guess maybe it was one of those things that got deleted off of Hack5. Well, yes, this is actually able to basically become a little router and even send over, like I was able to watch YouTube. It like sucked. It was like very slow, but it was still something that was doable. And yeah, so that's probably one of my favorite projects too. Being able to set it up as a NAT router is very cool. Um, it does have to be flash in a kind of a specific way, but I like to think of it as like a very low cost, cheap way of either enabling IoT devices to sip a little bit of data or to create like a honeypot or something like that if you really wanted to. All right, so last thing I have for this week, I think that we're now over time, but we started late, so that's fine. On the main Varonis channel, I know I always shout out our sponsor, Varonis. In particular, they are so nice as to let us do the stream every week, but usually, I have everyone go to our varonis.com/Kody, varonis.com/Kody. If you do this, it lets them know that you're watching the stream, you enjoy it, and you'll check out a link every once in a while. And in this case, we have another episode of Speed Data, but this is actually somebody internal to Varonis. I don't know if you guys know that we have like a really great incident response and also like pen testing and also security research team. And some of those people get to talk about the research that they do in our like research releases, but other people don't. And this was the first chance I got to hear about Sawar. She is on our research team, and yeah, so this was a great little interview. It's only 7 minutes long, and I was pleased to see that some of these speed data interviews have gotten really excellent at provoking a great and useful conversation with some great characters. So definitely check that out this week. It just came out. You can find it at varonis.com/KODY. And that's about all the show we have for you today. Let's see each other again on Friday, everyone. I think Killian will be back this time. I guess we'll find out. And Angelina, thank you again for coming on the stream. Looking forward to your show coming up this week, and it's Saturday, right?
Yes, it is Saturday. Thank you so much for having me on the stream again, Kody. It was great getting to answer some questions and tell everybody about the class.
Yeah, and if any of you happen to make it to the class at Null Space Labs, please say hello. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. All right, everyone, that's it for today. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.